3 spine-chilling true summer horror encounters exposed. Unexplained terrors from haunted day summer had always been looked upon with bright eyes in the quaint Ohio suburb where Rebecca lived. The streets were lined with white picket fences, children's laughter danced in the warm air, and neighbors gathered for barbecues, filling the evenings with a sense of community. But this summer, something shifted. The glowing sun turned into a flickering candle casting shadows over the innocent charm. Pets began to vanish during twilight hours, trailing whispers of dread floating through the neighborhood as families kept their doors locked tight. One night, as Rebecca drove home from her shift, she glanced into the park where her kids played every day. The playground stood eerily still, a stark contrast to the usual chatter that filled the air. Movement caught her eye, a tall figure, a silhouette blending into the darkness of the trees. She slammed on her brakes, heart hammering in her chest, breath hitching in her throat. A chill crawled down her spine as a wave of fear washed over her. What had once been a haven for her children transformed into a haunting ground. The tension escalated when her sweet innocent laughter turned into terrified shrieks. Her children, once lively, looked out the windows, their faces pale, whispers of a shadow man creeping back to haunt them. "Mommy, he's watching us!" They cried, clutching each other, their wide eyes reflecting pure terror. Rebecca's heart raced. Who was this figure? A sinister presence lurking in the heart of her community, as familiar faces turned grim and guarded. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, as twilight draped its thick curtain, Rebecca's resolve strengthened. She would confront the truth. Her neighbor, a once cherished retired cop, had eyes that now seemed hollow, slipping into shadows of something unspeakable. Mumbles of his past skittered through the community like scattered leaves. How could someone once trusted become a reason for anxiety? As the whispers escalated, the police reassured families, their smiles hollow and empty. One fateful night, she returned home, drained from her shift, only to find her children cowered together in the living room. Their game had turned dark. "Mommy, we saw him. The man with dark eyes. He was right outside." Terror wrapped around Rebecca like chains, her breaths shallow as those familiar walls suddenly felt like a trap. She could no longer dismiss her fears. The danger was here. Stepping outside into the oppressive heat, Rebecca felt the thickness of every anxious pulse. As she ventured into the night, the park loomed less inviting, the laughter replaced by haunting silence. Shadows danced with their own twisted forms, and a rustle in the underbrush sent icy fingers crawling along her neck. She hesitated, every fiber of her being warning her to turn back, to hold her children tight. But a new fear gripped her. What if the figure was lurking right next door, hiding in plain sight? She felt more isolated than ever before. As night deepened, the haunting shadows whispered of secrets that maybe, just maybe, were best left undiscovered. She stepped deeper into darkness, tracing her steps to the very heart of her community's hidden terror, the sound of shuffling roots breaking into the stillness. The night thickened around Rebecca like a suffocating blanket, weighing heavily on her shoulders. Each step echoed in her ears, a rhythmic drum of tension, blending with the near silence that enveloped the park. She squinted into the dark, every shadow morphing into a grotesque figure. Was it just her mind, or was there really something stalking her from the edges of the trees? The sinister intent seemed to pulse with the moonlight, a heartbeat that quickened in tune with her own. A distant rustling tore through the oppressive silence. Her heart raced not just with fear but also with dread-fueled determination. She couldn't back down now. What if that shadow man was watching her? What if he was waiting for her to turn away, to give in to her terror? Summoning what little courage she had left, Rebecca crept toward the inner recesses of the darkened park. As she approached, the swing swaying softly in the breeze, a chill crept through her veins, as if the air itself had turned malevolent. They creaked eerily, a haunting lullaby filled with sinister promise. She could almost hear the echoes of laughter that once filled the space, crushed under waves of deepening silence. "Mommy?" The quiet voice of her youngest, Makia, echoed in her mind. Rebecca pictured her small face, eyes wide and terrified. She struggled to banish the image, focusing instead on the uncertainty looming ahead. What awaited her beyond that empty playground, a nightmare or the truth? A sudden movement caught her eye, a flicker behind the trees near the far side of the park. Curiosity tugged at her, mixing with fear, an intoxicating blend that pulled her closer. "Hello?" she called, her voice strained, a broken whisper in the stillness. The darkness swallowed her words. At first, there was nothing. The air grew colder, weighing heavy like the echoes of despair. But then another rustle. There it was again. Not just wind this time. Something was definitely there, shifts and turns that promised nothing but chaos. She inched forward, the grass crunching beneath her feet like brittle bones. The park transformed beneath her gaze into a ghostly playground, memories tainted by the current, fear gripping her heart. As she crossed into the dense vegetation bordering the trees, a figure emerged, a blurred outline now stepping confidently into the pale light. It was him, the Shadow Man. The very embodiment of the terror that had invaded their lives. Tall and wiry, he stood motionless, completely still, yet Rebecca could feel his gaze piercing into her soul. She stumbled back, breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" Her voice quivered, barely a sound against the oppressive night. He didn't reply. Instead, the center of the darkness around him seemed to thicken, a pulsating mass that breathed in the silence, hungry for recognition. A bristle of primal terror ran down her spine. This wasn't just a man, this was something ancient, a threat steeped in the very roots of her community's collective fears. Unwilling to submit, she took a step forward. "Stay away from my children." For a moment, the world hung suspended. Then, abruptly, he lunged toward her, swift and shocking, the dark mass swallowing him whole as he vanished into the night. Rebecca gasped, her heart pounding in her chest like a war drum, the air suddenly heavy with apprehension. What had she just witnessed? Could he strike at her family? Her feet seemed glued to the ground, panic seeping through her limbs, threatening to overwhelm her. She turned on her heel, bolting back the way she had come, the sudden sense of danger amplifying her steps. But was it too late? Thoughts of her children crowded her mind, fueling her desperate sprint. What was lurking back home? As she darted towards the house, her eyes caught sight of flitting shadows near her porch. Were her children safe? The unsettling feeling of being watched pricked at her skin once more. Whatever was happening in her neighborhood, it was only just beginning. And as she reached her doorstep, the front door creaked open slowly, an invitation or a warning awaiting inside. Rebecca hesitated for a heartbeat, her hand hung in the air, inches from the door. The threshold loomed like an abyss, dark and foreboding. A soft, shuffling noise from within made her stomach knot. Her children, Makia. "Jake," she called, desperation choking her voice. Silence answered, thick and suffocating. She could feel every second stretch into eternity as hope turned into dread. Slowly, fighting the urge to recoil, she stepped inside. The interior lay shrouded in shadows, the moonlight filtering through the curtains casting a ghostly glow across the furniture. The air was still, almost oppressive, but felt wrong in a way that pricked her skin with goosebumps. The house felt empty, yet a chilling current buzzed about, an invisible reminder that something lingered. "Mommy's home," she shouted, forcing a brave facade. A slow creak echoed from upstairs, the old wood protesting as if warding her off. Heart racing, Rebecca glanced up the staircase. It rose into a dark maw where light dared not go. Breath hitching, she gripped the banister, the wood cool against her clammy palm. She climbed each step carefully, feeling the eye of something press into her from the shadows, a predatory weight following her ascent. On the landing, she took a breath, almost steadying herself. She could hear the faint sound of raspy breathing. It was coming from her children's room. Makia? Jake? The door to the room stood ajar, a feeble stream of light spilling out. Curiosity battled with dread as she reached for the knob, her hand trembling uncontrollably. She turned it slowly, an agonizing twist, pushing the door open further. Waist-high dolls littered the floor, their painted eyes glinting in the low light, almost mocking her. The bed was empty, untidy sheets hung fluttering as though in an invisible breeze. But something was off. Sudden movement caught her eye. Her children's closet door was slightly open. Was it a trick of the light that trapped her eyes there, or was there really something lurking in the darkness beyond? She willed her feet to move, each step feeling like a betrayal. Whatever courage she had left was drowned in a sea of dread. The air grew denser, and that breathing no longer distant was right behind her. She spun, heart in her throat, only to be greeted by empty space. "This isn't happening," she whispered, a mantra against the rising panic swelling in her chest. With a deep breath, she approached the closet, each shuffle of her feet echoing ominously in the hollow quiet. "Kids," she choked out again, the magic of the word turning into a spell against the fear gripping her heart. Rebecca grabbed the door handle and swung it wide open, revealing an inky black interior. The closet absorbed the light, stretching into what felt like an endless void. She leaned in, peering deeper, terrified yet compelled to know. Suddenly, from the depths, a laugh tore through the darkness, a playful, high-pitched giggle that belonged to Makia. Relief swelled in her chest, but it quickly evaporated when the laughter warped into something twisted, echoing with a chilling familiarity. "Come play with us, Mommy." Rebecca's breath caught, a shard of ice piercing her heart. She stumbled back as the laughter morphed again, transforming into a chorus of voices. Her children's voices melded into one unnerving harmony. She backed away, panic blazing, the laughter swirling, drowning in a cacophony of playful torment. But before she could flee, her heart plummeted. Behind her, the door had swung shut, trapping her in the wretched noise. "Mommy." The voice was clearer now, yet it sounded pained, urging her back. She pounded against the closet door, her body hollow with fear. But the laughter echoed louder, more menacing, snaring her in a web of dread. The shadows began to coalesce, swirling around her like specters of the past, and in the flicker of the lamplight, she saw him again. The shadow man stood at the edge of the hallway, his presence a dreadful reminder of the terror lurking just out of reach. "Let them go!" she screamed, fists shaking against the door, desperate to stop the encroaching darkness. But the laughter continued, teasing. The light flickered desperately, and for a moment, she caught a glimpse of Makia and Jake, their faces pale, eyes wide not with fear, but something else, something inscrutable. And the shadow man stepped closer, merging into the swirling chaotic laughter, pulling away their innocence as the shadows laughed and whirled around him. What was happening? What nightmare had she just stumbled into? As shadows danced wickedly, Rebecca felt her grip on sanity loosen, a dark veil plunging in around her. She had to escape this reality, had to know what it all meant, if her children were truly in there. And just then, as a surge of darkness threatened to overwhelm her, she heard a whisper, clear and deliberate, from somewhere deep inside, "Find us, Mommy." Panic surged through Rebecca as she pressed against the door, desperation clawing at her throat. The laughter twisted around her like a noose, tightening with every chilling echo. Each heartbeat felt louder, pounding against the eerie stillness that surrounded her, each thud a cruel reminder that she was alone in this nightmarish space. "Find us, Mommy," the voice beckoned again, softer now, like a faint flicker of hope amid the suffocating dread. But something deep within her screamed that it wasn't hope, it was a trap. She turned back to the closet, the inky darkness pulling her deeper, a siren's call she couldn't resist. Her fingers trembled on the closet door as she breathed in the terrible smell, something damp, earthy, a despairing scent that made her stomach churn. She forced her feet to move, fighting the urge to flee. The whispers swirled around her, growing louder until they became a symphony of taunts. Suddenly, the closet released a burst of cold air, sending shivers down her spine. It felt alive, breathing, waiting. "You'll never leave," it seemed to promise, and chills raced across her skin. "Makia! Jake!" The words left her lips in a frantic whisper, and in that moment, the laughter stopped. A haunting silence cloaked the room, absorbing her cries. It was the kind of silence that felt wrong, like something was about to break. Then, from somewhere within the depths of the closet, shadows began to writhe. The darkness morphed, shifting closer and closer, until a figure emerged, crawling out with agonizing slowness. The outline was familiar, yet distorted. The head was too big, the limbs too thin. Rebecca's throat tightened, the world around her spinning as the realization hit. It looked like Makia, but the grin stretching across its face was wrong, twisted, bearing sharp teeth and empty eyes that glimmered with cruelty. "Mommy, we've missed you," it cooed, the voice dripping with malice. A scream tried to erupt from her mouth, but nothing came out. She turned to run, and stumbled over the threshold, colliding with the door behind her. It swung open, thudding against the wall, revealing the darkness of the hallway. Panic surged through her veins. The shadow man was gone, but the echoes of laughter still rang in her ears. A deep, primal fear gripped her heart. Makia, Jake, where were they? She dashed past the open door of the children's room, the oppressive air feeling thick as she bolted down the stairs. The house groaned beneath her feet, as if it were alive, resentful of her escape. As she reached the bottom step, icy fingers gripped her wrist. She gasped and turned, eyes wide in horror. It was Jake, but his face was obscured by shadows, the features twisted and warped. "We can't leave." Terror flooded through her, and Rebecca dashed deeper into the house, her heart pounding so loudly she could hardly think. She knew, in her gut, that this wasn't part of some cruel imagination, it was a nightmare made flesh. The hallway stretched endlessly, the walls closing in as she ran. Something flickered to her left, a glimpse of movement. She stopped, feeling breathless, as a shiver traveled up her spine. Another figure darted past, a shadow flitting momentarily in the corner of her eye. Was it Makia? Was she close? Spinning around, Rebecca found herself back where she started. The living room loomed, empty and unsettling. The plush couch felt more like a predator waiting to pounce than a place of safety. "Get out!" she screamed into the oppressive silence. But the house ignored her, its walls breathing heavily, suffocating all traces of her attempts to escape. The whisper returned, this time more insistent. "You have to find us. Come play." And just like that, it struck her. Whatever this place was, whatever had claimed her children, was now poised to swallow her whole too. There on the staircase, shadows thickened once more. The figures moved with purpose, closing in. With a surge of urgency, Rebecca lunged toward the front door, praying it would be her salvation. But as the shadows wrapped around her like a blanket of despair, the door swung shut with a resonating bang. "Mommy!" A chilling harmony answered her, her children's voices intertwining in a final, desperate plea. The house, it seemed, had no intention of letting her go. It craved her willingness to join in the darkness. And just as the figures loomed closer, the lights flickered one final time. In an instant, the world around her faded to black. What had become of her children? Would she ever understand what held them captive? A faint, ghostly whisper floated through the air as everything darkened. "Now it's your turn to play." Rebecca felt the cold seep into her bones, an icy grip tightening around her heart. She was immersed in darkness, where every breath echoed her dread. The house pulsed with a life of its own, reverberating whispers that clawed at her sanity. "Mommy!" The voices were closer now, wrapping around her like a shroud. She felt the presence of her children, but something was horribly twisted. They were here, but distorted, like a reflection warped in a cracked mirror. Instinctively, she reached out, searching for any hint of warmth within the void. "Makia! Jake!" she called, but the air consumed her words, turning them into hollow echoes. the darkness rippled again, shapes beginning to emerge. They shifted and merged, growing larger with every heartbeat. A low, guttural sound filled the air. Panic surged, forcing her legs to move. She stumbled back, each step feeling like a battle against the invisible weight of despair. Suddenly, flickering shadows danced on the walls, creating grotesque shapes that reached for her. Was that a hand? A face? Or was it just her imagination, driven wild by fear? The room spun around her, distorting the space, making her dizzy. "Mommy, where are you?" The voice pulled at her heart, cracking her resolve. It sounded like Makia, but laced with desperation. She clutched her temples, trying to suppress the rising tide of grief. "Don't give in," she thought fiercely, even as her heart hammered in dread. With renewed determination, she dashed toward the kitchen, thinking of knives, something to defend herself. But as she stepped inside, the air thickened further. Every corner seemed darker, as if swallowing light. "Come find us." The unified voice chimed, laughter bubbling up, playful but tinged with malice. She spotted the kitchen island, her sanctuary. As she crept toward it, a shadow darted past, brushing against her like a cold breeze. Startled, she whipped around, scanning for any sign of her children. Nothing. Then she noticed it on the far wall, a door slightly ajar, light bleeding into the dark like a lifeline. Was it the way out? Or a deeper descent into hell? Fingers trembling, she edged closer, her breath hitching in her throat. The laughter swelled, echoing louder, more sinister. It was driving her mad. "Don't give in," she whispered to herself, but every thread of hope snapped back as she felt icy breath against her neck. "No, no, no," she turned sharply, eyes wide, but found only the emptiness of the kitchen. It was all trickery, all a game, and she was deep in it. Desperate, she pulled the door fully open, revealing a dimly lit room beyond. The light flickered, like a candle fighting against a storm. Inside, shadows moved fluidly, darting like wild things. A chill coursed through her as she stepped over the threshold. The room felt wrong, the wallpaper curling at the edges, rippling like a breath of rot. "Mommy," the call was softer now, threadbare, laced with a haunting sorrow. "Makia." Rebecca's voice shattered the stillness, reverberating back to her from every corner, swallowed by the very fabric of the house. She stepped in further, heart pounding, fighting the urge to turn back. Shadows clung to her as she moved deeper, stifling her hopes. They whispered secrets she didn't want to hear, pulling her off balance until she was standing at the center of the room. In the faint light, she spotted a small toy box, painted a cheerful blue, contrasting sharply with the oppressive darkness. It held a promise, a remnant of her children's innocence. With shaking hands, she lifted the lid. Silence fell. Shadows recoiled, as if afraid of what might be revealed. Inside lay a collection of broken toys, their faces cracked, expressions frozen in anguish, eyes reflecting a dark emptiness. Sudden clarity struck her. They weren't just lost, they were ensnared. "Why won't you join us?" The shadows hissed, coiling around her ankles like serpents. Rebecca slammed the lid shut, dread settling deep in her stomach. She had to find a way to fight back. This wasn't just about her children, it was about saving herself too. As she turned, ready to flee, the shadows closed in, suffocating her. The door slammed shut behind her, trapping her within the confines of a nightmare. The laughter rang out one last time, echoing in chaotic harmony. Let us play forever. What new horror awaited her in this twisted game? And would she even have the strength to face it? Rebecca's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a desperate plea for escape. The ominous laughter twisted around her, weaving into her bones, pulling her into despair. The shadows, those malevolent things of flitting darkness, seemed to stretch and pulse, alive with a hunger she couldn't comprehend. She pressed her back against the cold, unforgiving wall, gasping for air as the pressure mounted. The disembodied voices circled her, children's laughter distorted by malice, morphing into a cacophony of torment. It felt like they were taunting her, drawing her deeper into the heart of the house. Makia. Jake. Her voice cracked, splintered like the broken toys she had just seen. She was losing cohesion, pieces of her sanity fraying under the weight of this nightmare. Rebecca's eyes darted around the room, searching for a weapon, anything to make her feel less powerless. She spotted a kitchen knife on the floor, glinting dully in the feeble light. Moving quickly, she lunged for it, fingers wrapping around the handle, its cool steel offering a slight reassurance against the oppressive darkness, but just as she picked it up, a chill rode through the air, freezing her in place. Whispers coalesced into a dark form, a figure shifting in the shadows. It was tall, grotesque, a parody of a child, its limbs elongated and twisted, creeping towards her with unearthly grace. The head tilted, and she felt the malicious gaze scanning her, sizing up her terror. "Mommy, come play with us." The voice sounded like her daughter's but twisted into something sinister, mocking. The figure, it was wrong. Its mouth stretched wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth that seemed too sharp for any human. "Get away from me!" Rebecca yelled, brandishing the knife like a sword. She backed away, but the shadows folded in tighter, the corners of the room now stark and looming like hungry beasts. The figure lunged, and panic surged through her veins. She swung wildly, the blade cutting through air, carving a path through the darkness. To her astonishment, it met resistance. A shriek pierced the air, raw and furious. The shadow lifted away, recoiling, but not before a wave of heat hit her face, a brief glimpse of its true form, a sight so dreadful it made her stomach churn. "Mommy, you hurt him," came the voice again, echoing around her. Panic morphed into fury. "Stop it. Stop playing." She felt every motherly instinct battling against the horror surrounding her. "Why do you fight us?" The shadows rippled, a chorus of laughter rising as if the house itself was twisting in delight at her fear. But beneath the laughter, she heard the faint cries of her children, trapped and lost in this madness. The room warped around her. Reality bent, shadows vibrating in a semblance of emotion. Rebecca's heart soared for a blip of hope. Those dandelion seeds of instinct urged her, "Fight back. Makia. Jake. I'll find you. I promise." She shouted, her voice fierce. Rushing toward the door she had just come through, she found it locked tight, no handle, only smooth wood that pulsed like a living thing. She pressed her palm against it, feeling the heat radiating back as if defiantly alive. "Let us out!" she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. Shadows pressed against her, cold, enveloping her in an unbreakable grip. Never, the figure hissed, its eyes gleaming with a dark glint, "You belong to us now." "No!" A surge of power rushed through her, she was more than just terror. With her will igniting, she pushed against the door like it was her last lifeline. A crack formed, light spilling in, scorching hot and bright against the chilling dark. "Together we are stronger," she yelled, feeling the pull of her children's spirits urging her on, her fears shaping into resolve. She thrust the knife into the crack, pushing against the darkness with every ounce of strength. The shadows shrieked, retreating as the light consumed them. The figure melted back, crashing into a vortex of despair. But as light flooded the room, it stumbled backward, dragging something with it. From the depths, a haunting wail echoed. A child caught in shadow's coil. The scream sliced through her heart like glass, a desperate call for comfort, for a mother. "Makia?" But the light swirled and dimmed. In the chaos, a new darkness rose, engulfing the room once more. A voice, cool as ice, whispered, "You haven't escaped yet." Rebecca's pulse raced. What was this darkness hiding? What more could it take from her? The very air shimmered with uncertainty as a new horror began to unfold, deeper than she had ever imagined. Would she ever find her children? And what price would she have to pay for the light? The shadows thickened, an inky veil that drowned out the remnants of light. Rebecca was backed against the pulsating door, her breath coming in rapid gasps. The air was laden with the scent of something acrid, like burnt sugar, a sickly sweetness that churned her stomach. She could feel the darkness reaching for her, tendrils wrapping around her legs, trying to pull her down into the abyss. The whispers grew louder, a maddening symphony that reached into her mind, scratching at the fragile walls of her sanity. "Let us play." The voice slithered across her skin, sending shivers down her spine. But deep within her, a flicker of defiance ignited. "No!" she snarled, holding the knife before her like a shield. "You want to take me?" Rebecca pushed against the door again, but it was like pushing against a brick wall. The shadows surged, pressing in with a malicious, almost joyful delight. "We've waited so long for you," they hissed in unison, echoing through the chamber with cruel familiarity. The figure materialized again, this time flanked by other shapes, more childlike forms with hollow eyes and grinning mouths filled with too many teeth. They giggled, a sound that echoed through the room, a twisted parody that made her insides churn. "You'll play with us forever," Mommy panic clawed at her throat. "I want to," she whispered fiercely, though doubt seeped in. What if she could never escape? What if she never found Makia and Jake? The thought was a razor-edge blade piercing through her heart. "Mommy!" There it was again, a cry, distant yet near enough to break her heart. It was mixed with the shadows, shrouded in echoes. "Makia?" Rebecca cried out, her voice thick with desperation. But her plea went unanswered, swallowed by the dark laughter surrounding her. With a surge of adrenaline, she plunged the knife into the crack in the door, desperately trying to pry it apart. Something snapped, and a sharp agony shot through her fingers as the knife glinted and twisted. But she didn't let go. Not now. Not ever. The laughter turned frantic, frantic fingers clawing at her, tearing at her resolve. "Mommy! Don't fight. Join us." Their voices warped, twisting her memories into nightmares, her failure as a mother crashing around her. "No!" she screamed, drowning in their energy, the shadows sliding around her waist like snakes. Rebecca's fingers found their grip, not on the door, but on a different kind of will, the last remnant of hope buried deep within. This was not just about her anymore, it was about her children, her voice, her fight. "I can't lose you," she cried, her voice rising above the chaos. With a final cry, she drove the knife deeper, a final resistance against the consuming dark. Light exploded, raw and blinding. The screaming grew piercing, the shadows recoiling in agony as the knife's edge lit up with brilliance. The room quaked, and for a heartbeat, it seemed that freedom was within reach, but as the vibration subsided, she stumbled backward. The whispers fell silent, the shadows flickering as they retreated to dark corners. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Amid the chaos, a deeper shadow loomed, darker than before, a swirling mass of fury. "You think you've won?" it hissed, the air thick with impending doom. "You only glimpsed the truth." Rebecca's eyes widened as a familiar, horrific face emerged from the darkness, a face she knew all too well. Makia, but it wasn't her daughter anymore. The spirit twisted in sorrow and malice, trapped within darkness. Rebecca's heart sank as chilling realization crept in. What price had she really paid for the light? The darkness quaked, and she felt the ground beneath her shift. Would she be strong enough to face this twisted reunion? Or would they all succumb to the darkness that waited, hungry and relentless? Her hands trembled, the knife slipping. In that moment of dread, the shadows drew closer again. As the room spiraled into chaos, a chilling voice echoed once more, "Your time is running out." Rebecca staggered back, her breath hitching as she watched Makia's face morph grotesquely. The spark of recognition twisted into something hideous, her daughter's eyes now deep, endless voids, devoid of warmth or reason. "Mommy, let me show you," her voice said, both familiar and starkly alien. The shadows around them writhed, pulsating with a malevolence that felt almost alive. Laughter erupted again, a cacophony of shrill, childlike glee that echoed off the walls, clawing at Rebecca's mind. Heart racing, she glanced around, searching for a way out, grasping at fading hope. "Makia, please. I need you," Rebecca cried, desperation lacing her words. But the shadow in her daughter's form only smiled wider, teeth glistening like shards of glass. "Need us?" The chorus of voices from the darkness harmonized, delighting in her suffering. "You brought us here, you kept us alive." It rushed in on her, the memories flooding back, the sleepless nights, the bitter taste of blame. Each moment became a searing pinprick in her conscience, twisting like knives in her gut. "No," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "No, I didn't mean to. I can fix this." The twisted faces of the children danced in and out of her vision, their hollow eyes staring hungrily. They were tightly bound to the darkness, each one a fragment of some terrible puzzle. Rebecca's legs felt rooted to the ground, solid and immovable as fear laced through her veins. "You won't take me," she yelled, brandishing the knife like the last beacon of her fading hope. "Let go, Mommy," the shadowed Makia pleaded softly, now morphing into playful laughter echoing around her. "We just want to play." Rebecca shook her head again, tears blurring her vision, and steeled herself. With a howl, she ratcheted the knife back, gathering every ounce of her will. "I am not a part of this," she screamed, driving the knife forward again, thrusting it into the shadow itself. The moment it connected, ripples coursed through the dark, sending shockwaves of light spiraling outward. But rather than dispelling the darkness, it only stirred something deeper, a powerful, growling rage. The air grew colder, constricting around her. "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy." The children laughed again, their voices shifting from playful to menacing as shadows pressed in tighter on her. Feet slipping on the unseen ground beneath her, Rebecca stumbled, the knife clattering away lost among the laughter and the shadows. Panic seized her heart, she could feel the darkness enveloping her, urging her forward into a horrifying embrace. Yet still, a flicker of defiance sparkled. "I'll never join you," she managed between gasps. She had to hold on to that ember, that stubborn will that kept her heart beating. "Why fight, Rebecca? You are already ours," the darkness snarled, its voice grating against her ears, an urgent whisper full of malice. "Your time is ending. They will join you soon." The shadows began to swirl rapidly, thickening into a swirl of darkness that engulfed her. It was then that she saw them, figures darting in and out, little hands reaching, pleading. "Mommy! Help us!" Makia's voice called again, desperation mingled with fear. Suddenly, the ground beneath her cracked open, a chasm of shimmering blackness yawning wide, threatening to swallow her whole. "No, no, no," she chanted, scrambling backward, struggling against the irresistible pull. Something snapped within her heart. The realization of what she might lose if she took another step back. "Makia!" Rebecca screamed, her voice rising above the encroaching madness. "Jake! I won't leave you." Determined, she stepped forward, reaching for the fading outline of her daughter, her chest tightening as the darkness recoiled violently. But just as her fingers grazed the icy outline of Makia's shadow, a crushing weight slammed into her shoulder. "Mommy, run!" The strained voice of Jake erupted, reaching out from within the swirling abyss. At that moment, Rebecca knew she was about to confront the depths of her nightmare. Every hair on her body stood on end as she prepared to leap into the unknown. What had she really brought upon her family? And could she find the strength to save them all, or would they fall together into the darkness? There was only one way to find out. The darkness roared around her, a living entity hungry for Rebecca's despair. She could feel it, thick and suffocating, pressing in, wrapping around her like an anaconda tightening its grip. No escape. Only the chasm below, pulsing like a monster waiting to devour her whole. "Rebecca, we're so close." Makia's shadow flickered, her voice echoing, taunting. The playfulness was gone, replaced by an urgency that sent daggers down Rebecca's spine. "I'm coming. I swear." Rebecca shouted, though the words felt hollow, swallowed by the advancing tide of shadow. She took a step forward, heart pounding, every instinct screaming at her to resist. The edges of the chasm cracked like thunder, splitting the foundation of her willpower. But then a whisper, a soft echo from angels or demons, it curled around her ankle. Let them go find peace. It'll be easier, shut up. She yelled back at the shadows, trembling. She wasn't ready to surrender. I will not choose darkness. I've wronged you, I know, but I will save you. Mommy, we need you. Jake's voice spiraled into the night, threaded with terror. It was now or never. Rebecca lunged toward the shadowy hands reaching for her, her fingers inching closer as tendrils of black shifted to ensnare her. Please, Mommy. The children cried, their shapes flickering, pleading. The shadows around them rippling with hunger, but behind them, rising from the darkness, new shapes lurked, figures twisted and elongated like snakes, mouths gaping wide, waiting for her to falter. Each breath she took tasted bitter and sharp, like shards of ice biting into her lungs. The air itself screamed as they closed in. Makia! She shrieked, desperation surging, filling her with a fierce resolve. I'm not abandoning you. I'm coming. With each heartbeat, the chasm beneath her gaped wider, the haunting laughter crescendoing, drowning out her fear. She took another step, clenching her fists, desperate to find her children, desperate to confront the terror that bound them. Mommy, please, the voices begged, now a dissonant choir playing on her last nerve. Every syllable a dagger, slicing into her resolve. The shadows rolled like waves about to break, whispering chaos and madness that clawed at her sanity. Then she spotted them tight amid the writhing dark figures. Two small silhouettes emerged from the abyss. Makia and Jake stood, their forms trembling, arms reaching out. The twisted shadows lunged toward them, ugly and hungry, falling upon them like a storm. No! Rebecca roared, lunging forward instinctively. Time stretched and curled around her like a serpent. She was inches from her children, her fingers brushing against their cold, relentless shadows. No! The shadows hissed back, thickening like heaving black smoke, ready to consume everything she loved. A blast of icy wind swept through, knocking her back. You cannot take them. It roared, the voice now a storm of anger that vibrated through her bones. No! She screamed again, charging. Desperation ignited a fire in her chest. I will not lose you. A blinding light erupted from nowhere, pushing back the darkness. It was as if her pure determination ignited a spark of defiance, battling the void. She felt the warmth sweep over her. But deep within, the realization gnawed, was this merely a flicker against the crushing weight of shadows? Only one thought remained, echoing in her mind. Where there was light, there must be hope, but would that hope be enough to conquer hell? And as the shadows hissed around her, lurking like monsters under a child's bed, Rebecca braced for the fight of her life, breath quickening. What would she have to sacrifice to save her family? The question lingered, an unseen weight pressing down. With the darkness swirling around her, ready to pounce, Rebecca held her hands tight, determined. They were waiting to see what would happen next. So was she. Could she summon a force strong enough to fight the nightmares, or would she let them consume her and everything she loved? The world around Rebecca started to unravel. Coiled tendrils of darkness danced wildly, whispering promises and clawing at her sanity. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, ticking away the moments until everything she held dear was lost forever. The shadows murmured and laughed, a cacophony of nightmares pressing in from every angle, but amidst the chaos, she found a flicker of clarity, a single thought igniting the fire within her. I will not lose you. She shouted, a battle cry that cut through the oppressive air. For the first time, Rebecca didn't cower in fear. Instead, she pushed against the shadows. Light erupted from within her, a warm beacon pushing back against the darkness like a lighthouse on a stormy night. She wasn't just fighting to save her children, she was reclaiming their bond woven in love, the memories that filled their home, the laughter that once filled the air like sweet music. Makia! Jake! She called again, a fierce resolve anchoring her determination. As if responding, the shadows recoiled, hissing with rage. Makia and Jake's forms flickered within the swirling darkness, their eyes wide but holding shadows of hope. Rebecca could see them, could almost touch them, but the blackness closed in around them, stretching, reforming, like a living thing intent on extinguishing her light. "Mommy, help us!" The cries of her children tore through her heart, splintering her resolve. But Rebecca was done questioning herself. In a surge of power, she dashed forward, fearless, as the shadows lashed out, trying to snag her limbs. She felt the cold brush against her as she maneuvered through the darkness, her heart racing with every step. "I will get you!" she yelled, each syllable a shield against the chaos. The space twisted around her, gleefully pulling, taunting her resolve. But she would not bend. She reached for her children, willing her body to move faster, her mind laser-focused. The gap between them narrowed painfully, the shadows pulsed and writhed, howling in fury, grasping at Rebecca's ankles, but with a fierce cry, she planted her feet firmly on the ground. "No! You don't own me. You don't own my children." A brilliant light surged from her heart, piercing through the murky air. The shadows screamed, retreating once more from the warmth. The moment felt like eternity. She was emerging from the void, closer to her kids than ever. Time slowed, every heartbeat drawing her closer. She stretched out her hand, fingers brushing against their ethereal forms as her children reached back toward her, eyes shining with desperation. "Mommy!" they chorused, voices uniting in echoes of anguish and desire. With one final burst of energy, she leapt forward, grasping their hands. A rush of energy surged, blinding light enveloping them, pushing back the darkness in a wave of resistance. The vacuum of shadows clawed at them, but united in love, they felt as if they could overpower even the grimmest of fates. "Together!" Rebecca yelled, squeezing her kids' hands tightly. The warmth between them flickered like a candle in the wind, but it was a flame born of fierce love. In that moment, everything intensified. The shadows screamed louder, battling against the blinding light radiating from their unity. Then, with an earth-shattering roar, the shadows began to peel back, disintegrating into wisps of vapor, the darkness overcoming itself. "Keep fighting. Trust in our love," Rebecca cried, urging her children to hold on. They surged forward, light swirling around them like a protective cocoon. For every shadow that came close, the brightness flared, pushing the darkness back to reveal a path, a new passage free of despair. They ran, hand in hand, the world outside shifting as they broke through into the cool night air. The park waited, now transformed, devoid of the sinister presence that had haunted them. It was peaceful, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight, as if the summer night had reclaimed its innocence. The laughter of children echoed cheerily nearby, distant yet familiar, melting away the memories of horror. Rebecca fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she pulled Makia and Jake into a tight embrace. They were back. They were here and safe, warmth flooding through her veins. "Mommy, you found us." Makia giggled, innocent joy rushing back to life, as Jake added with excitement, "We missed you." "Never again," Rebecca swore, a deep promise embedded in the depths of her soul. She glanced back toward the park where shadows had once lingered, hinting of danger that could return. But with her children beside her, they had faced the dark, fought for their bond, and emerged intact. They would continue to fight, they would live in the light of hope together. As they walked towards their safe haven, hand in hand, Rebecca kept her heart open, ready to embrace the beauty of every moment, every laugh. The horrors of the past would stay there, but she held one crucial lesson close: love could chase away the darkest of shadows, and as the cool breeze embraced them, the whisper of darkness faded back into the depths, forever held at bay by the strength of love. Don't wait another second. You need to subscribe now and ensure you never miss a single exclusive story. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and support the channel. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us hear your thoughts. And hurry, share this video with at least 5 friends who must see this conclusion. Your support means everything. Let us keep the community alive.